Most builds that claim to be invincible are lying to you. They rely on inflated armor class numbers that crumble the moment a spellcaster shows up. They depend on healing loops that fall apart when you fail a save. They assume the battlefield will cooperate with your positioning, and that enemies will attack you in the exact order your defenses are designed to handle. Then the Dungeon Master throws a second encounter at you before you can rest, and the entire structure collapses. This build does not prevent damage. It does not stack armor class into the 20s. It does not rely on a cleric standing next to you. What it does is change the condition under which you lose. In Dungeons & Dragons, you lose when you hit 0 hit points and fail death saving throws. This build makes that sequence impossible to complete. You do not avoid going to 0, you go to 0 constantly. But you never stay there. More importantly, you never stop acting. The enemy gets you to 1 hit point, and then watches you stand back up and take your turn anyway. They have not won. They have bought you time to end them. The failure point of most defensive builds is that they try to avoid the 0 hit point threshold entirely. That means every resource they spend is dedicated to keeping hit points above 1. When those resources run out, the character has nothing left. They drop, the healer rushes over, and the action economy collapses. Even if the character survives, they have burned slots, consumed potions, and forced the party into recovery mode. The Dungeon Master knows this. The moment a tanky character starts getting low, the pressure intensifies. Enemies focus fire, saving throws start coming in. The character either burns everything to stay up or goes down and becomes a liability. This build does not fight that pressure, it accepts it. The character is designed to function at 1 hit point as effectively as they function at full health. That is not an exaggeration. When you drop to 1 hit point, you do not lose offensive output. You do not lose mobility. You do not lose your ability to threaten the battlefield. What you lose is the ability to fail death saves, because you are not making death saves, you are standing. The core of this build is a half-orc zealot barbarian with the feat Relentless Endurance from the half-orc ancestry and the zealot subclass feature Rage Beyond Death. These are not redundant. They are layered fail-safes that cover different scenarios. Relentless Endurance triggers once per long rest when you drop to 0 hit points. Instead of falling unconscious, you drop to 1 hit point. Rage Beyond Death allows you to continue fighting while at 0 hit points as long as you are raging. You do not fall unconscious. You do not make death saving throws. You keep taking turns. You only die if your rage ends while you are at 0 hit points, or if you take damage equal to your max hit points beyond 0. Here is what that means in play. You are in combat. You take a massive hit and drop to 0. Relentless Endurance kicks in. You are now at 1 hit point. You are still raging. You are still threatening. The enemy has not removed you from the fight. They have given you a turn at 1 hit point, which is the same as a turn at full hit points for this character. You attack, you move, you grapple, you do whatever you are going to do. If you take another hit before your next turn and drop to 0 again, Rage Beyond Death takes over. Now you are at 0, still conscious, still acting. You continue fighting until your rage ends, which will not happen as long as you keep attacking or taking damage, both of which you are doing because you are in the middle of combat. The Dungeon Master has 2 options. They can ignore you and let you keep swinging, or they can commit enough damage to push you into negative hit points equal to your max health. If your max hit points are 60, they need to deal 60 damage past 0 to kill you outright. That is not happening in a single turn unless the encounter is already massively overtuned. And if the encounter is that overtuned, your party has bigger problems than one character's survivability. What this means is that the enemy has functionally wasted their actions. They got you to 0. You kept fighting. They either have to overkill you or move on, and either choice lets you keep threatening them. Most players misunderstand what makes a character hard to kill. They think it is about having more hit points or better armor class or more healing. Those things help, but they do not change the win condition. The enemy still just needs to get you to 0 and keep you there. What changes the win condition is mechanics that let you ignore zero. Relentless Endurance and Rage Beyond Death do that. They do not prevent the drop, they invalidate it. The enemy achieves their goal and discovers their goal was not sufficient. This creates a psychological problem for the dungeon master. When a character goes down in most fights, the party reacts. Someone rushes over with healing word. Someone tries to stabilize. The pressure shifts. The downed character becomes the focal point. But when you do not go down, that does not happen. The party keeps executing their plan. The dungeon master now has to decide if they want to keep throwing actions at a target who refuses to fall, or if they want to spread damage elsewhere. Either decision is bad for them. If they keep attacking you, they are wasting actions on a target who will not stop fighting. If they switch targets, you keep attacking them with full effectiveness. The difference between this and a high armor class tank is that high armor class can be bypassed. The dungeon master brings in a spellcaster who targets your weak save. They use effects that do not require attack rolls. They force you into situations where armor class does not apply. Rage Beyond Death cannot be bypassed. It does not have a save. It does not care what type of damage you are taking. It does not require you to be in a specific position. It just works. You are at zero. You are still raging. You are still acting. Relentless Endurance covers the situation where you are not raging yet, or where your rage has not been active long enough for Rage Beyond Death to feel safe. It also covers the first drop of the day when resources are still fresh. This is important because most adventuring days do not start with the hardest fight. They start with an encounter that chips away at resources. Relentless Endurance lets you take a massive hit in that first or second fight without burning anything. You drop to 1, you keep going, and you save your actual defensive resources for later. By the time you hit the boss fight, you still have your rage, you still have your hit points in a reasonable range, and you still have not used a single spell slot on healing. Here is what a turn looks like when this goes into effect. You are fighting a group of enemies. You take a critical hit from a greatsword. 40 damage. You were at 30 hit points. You drop to 0. Relentless Endurance triggers. You are at 1. It is still the enemy turn. Another enemy goes. They hit you for 15 damage. You are at 0 again. Rage Beyond Death takes over. You are at 0, still conscious, still standing. Your turn comes up. You move into range of 2 enemies. You attack with reckless attack because you are a barbarian, and that is what you do. You hit. You deal damage. You keep your rage active. The enemies now have to decide if they want to keep attacking you, or if they want to deal with the wizard who is about to drop a fireball on them. They got you to 0 twice. You are still threatening them. They have not won. The reason this works across multiple tiers of play is that the mechanics scale with the threats you are facing. At early levels, Relentless Endurance alone is often enough. Enemies are not dealing enough damage in a single hit to drop you from healthy to 0, and if they do, you pop back to 1 and keep fighting. At mid-levels, you add Rage Beyond Death, and now you have 2 layers. At higher levels, your hit point pool is large enough that pushing you into negative hit points equal to your max becomes a serious resource investment for the dungeon master. A level 10 barbarian with a decent constitution score has 70 or 80 hit points. Getting that character to 0 is one thing. Dealing another 70 damage past 0 to kill them outright is another. Most encounters are not built to overkill a single target by that much. The other advantage is that this build does not require support. You are not waiting for someone to heal you. You are not positioning near a cleric. You are not dependent on another character using their action to keep you functional. You drop, you get back up, you keep swinging. The party can focus on their own win conditions. The wizard can keep casting, the rogue can keep attacking, the cleric can save their slots for actual emergencies instead of burning healing word every time you take a big hit. This keeps the action economy moving forward instead of collapsing into recovery mode. Most defensive builds create a resource spiral. You take damage, someone heals you. You take more damage, someone heals you again. Eventually the healing runs out and you drop anyway. This build skips that spiral entirely. You take damage, you drop, You stand back up on your own, you keep fighting. No one else spends resources, no one else uses their action. The enemy spent their action and got nothing for it. That is a win. The mistake players make with high durability builds is assuming that staying at high hit points is the goal. It is not. The goal is to remain a threat. A barbarian at full hit points and a barbarian at 1 hit point deal the same damage, move the same speed, and threaten the same space. The only difference is that the one at 1 hit point is closer to triggering the failsafes. But if those failsafes let you keep acting, then functionally there is no difference. The enemy has not removed you from the fight. They have just moved you closer to a state where you are even harder to remove. Here is where most people get concerned. They ask what happens if you are at 0 hit points under Rage Beyond Death and your rage ends. You die. That is the trade. But here is the thing. Your rage does not end unless you stop attacking or taking damage for a full round. If you are at 0 hit points, you are in the middle of a fight. You are attacking, enemies are hitting you. Your rage is not ending. The only way your rage ends while you are at 0 is if the fight ends and you are still at 0, which means you won the fight, and now you just need someone to stabilize you or heal you for 1 hit point. If the fight is over and you are at 0, you are not in danger. You are just waiting for someone to tap you with a healing word or a potion or a medicine check. The enemies are dead, you succeeded. The scenario where this fails is if you get separated from the party and go down alone. But that is true for every character. If you are alone and you go down, you are in trouble. This build does not fix bad positioning or bad tactics. What it does is let you survive focus fire and bad luck in the context of an actual fight where your party is present and the enemies have multiple threats to deal with. In that context, the enemy getting you to 0 does not take you out of the fight. It just changes the clock slightly. You have until your rage ends to finish the encounter or get healed. That is usually 3 to 10 rounds depending on how the fight is going. That is more than enough time. Another common question is what happens if you take a massive hit while you are already at 0 under Rage Beyond Death? The answer is that you take the damage and you go deeper into negative hit points. You do not die unless that damage takes you to negative hit points equal to your max. If you are at 0 and you take 20 damage, you are now at negative 20. You are still conscious. You are still fighting. If you are at negative 20 and you take another 30 damage, you are at negative 50. Still fighting. The enemy has to push you all the way to negative max hit points in one fight to kill you outright. That is a lot of damage. Most encounters do not have that much damage available to focus on one target. The reason this matters is that it removes the death spiral. In most fights, once a character goes down, they become a priority problem. The party has to get them back up, or they start failing death saves. That pulls resources and attention away from winning the fight and redirects it toward damage control. With this build, you going to 0 is not a problem. It is just a state. You keep fighting. The party keeps executing. The enemies have not created an advantage. They have just spent actions and damage on a target who is still threatening them. This is different from temporary hit points or damage resistance or high armor class because all of those can be calculated around. The Dungeon Master knows your armor class. They know your resistances. They can bring in magic damage or save-based effects or conditions that bypass your defenses. But they cannot bypass the fact that you continue acting at 0 hit points. There is no save. There is no attack roll. There is no condition that turns it off. You are at 0. You are raging. You are still taking turns. The only counter is massive overkill, and most encounters are not built to deliver that. At higher levels, enemies start dealing more damage per hit. A giant swings for 50 damage. A dragon breathes for 70. Those numbers sound scary, but they do not change the math. You drop to 0. Rage Beyond Death keeps you up. You take another hit. You go deeper into negatives. You keep fighting. The enemy needs to deal your entire max hit point total past 0 in a single encounter to kill you. At level 15, A barbarian can easily have over 100 hit points. Dealing 100 damage past 0 means the encounter had to put out enough damage to drop you from full to 0 and then another 100 on top of that. That is 200 total damage focused on one character. If the encounter is balanced, that is not happening. If the encounter is deadly, your party has bigger issues. The build also benefits from the fact that you are a barbarian, which means you have resistance to physical damage while raging. That effectively doubles your hit points against the most common damage types in the game. If you have 100 hit points and you are raging, the enemy has to deal 200 physical damage to drop you to 0. Then they have to deal another 100 past that to kill you outright. That is 300 damage. Most boss monsters do not have that much damage in their entire stat block, let alone focused on one target. What this does in practice is force the dungeon master into bad trades. They can focus fire you and waste massive amounts of damage trying to put you down, or they can spread damage across the party and let you keep hitting them. Either way, they lose. If they focus you, the rest of the party is free to execute their plan. If they ignore you, you keep dealing damage and threatening their backline. The dungeon master does not have a good answer. That is what makes this build actually invincible in the context of real play. Not that you cannot take damage, not that you cannot hit 0, but that hitting 0 does not stop you. The psychological impact on the dungeon master is significant. When you build an encounter, you assume certain things. You assume that if you deal enough damage to a character, they go down and stop being a threat. You assume that the party will have to react to that and spend resources getting them back up. You assume that dropping a frontline character creates pressure and opens up the rest of the party. When those assumptions do not hold, the encounter stops functioning the way it was designed to. The dungeon master has to adapt on the fly. They have to recalculate threat. They have to decide if they want to keep investing in a target who will not fall or if they want to shift focus. That recalculation takes time and mental energy, and while they are doing that, you are still attacking. This is also why the build works without being annoying to play with. You are not slowing down combat. You are not asking the dungeon master to track weird conditional bonuses. You are not forcing the table to look up rules every turn. You drop to 0, you stay up, you keep going. The mechanics are clear. The dungeon master knows what is happening. The party knows what is happening. There is no ambiguity. You just refuse to fall, and everyone at the table understands why. The build does have limitations. You are still a barbarian, which means you are not great at saving throws outside of strength and constitution. If the dungeon master starts hitting you with wisdom saves or charisma saves, you are going to fail some of them. If you get paralyzed or stunned or banished, rage beyond death does not help you. You are out of the fight until the condition ends. This is fine. Every build has weaknesses. The point is not to be immune to everything. The point is to be immune to the most common win condition, which is damage leading to unconsciousness leading to death. You handle that win condition better than any other build in the game. You are also not the highest damage dealer in the party. You are a barbarian with a great sword or great axe attacking twice per turn. That is good damage, but it is not fireball damage. It is not sharpshooter damage. What you are is consistent. You will be dealing that damage every single turn for the entire fight because you do not go down. The wizard might deal more damage in one turn, but if they go down on turn 3, their total damage output for the fight drops. You do not have that problem. You are there from turn 1 to turn 10 dealing damage every single round. Over the course of the fight, that adds up. The other thing you bring is space control. You are a frontline melee character who does not fall. That means enemies cannot push past you. They cannot drop you and move on to the squishier targets behind you. You are standing in the doorway at 1 hit point and you are still swinging. They have to deal with you or go around you, and if they go around you, you get opportunity attacks. You are not just surviving. You are controlling where enemies can move and what they can threaten. That has value beyond raw damage numbers. Here is what it looks like in a real fight. Turn 1, You move into melee with the biggest threat and attack with reckless attack. You hit, you deal damage. Rage is active. Turn 2, enemies attack you. You take a big hit. You are at low hit points. You take another hit. You drop to 0. Relentless endurance triggers. You are at 1. Your turn comes up. You attack again. You hit. You keep rage active. Turn 3. Enemies attack you again. You drop to 0. Rage beyond death takes over. You are at 0, still conscious. Your turn comes up. You attack. You hit. You are now at -10 hit points but still fighting. Turn 4. You take more damage. -30. Still fighting. Your turn. You attack. The enemy drops. Fight is over. You are at -30 hit points but the threat is dead. Someone in the party casts healing word. You are at +5. You are fine. That is 4 turns where the enemy had you at 0 or below and you were still attacking, still threatening, still contributing. In a standard build, you would have gone down on turn 2 and spent turn 3 making death saves or getting healed and losing your action. You would have contributed for 2 turns instead of 4. That is half the output. This build doubles your effective contribution in fights where you take heavy focus fire. In fights where you do not take focus fire, you just deal damage normally and never trigger the fail-safes. Either way, you are contributing. The reason most invincibility builds fail is that they try to prevent the problem instead of solving it. They stack armor class, they stack hit points, they stack healing. All of that is prevention. It is trying to stop the damage before it becomes a problem. But damage is not the problem. Unconsciousness is the problem. Death is the problem. This build does not prevent damage. It prevents unconsciousness and death. That is a much simpler problem to solve, and the tools for solving it already exist in the game. You just have to use them correctly. What makes this build reliable is that the mechanics are not conditional. Relentless endurance does not require a saving throw. Rage beyond death does not require a skill check. They just happen. You drop to 0, you stay up. There is no randomness. There is no chance of failure. The Dungeon Master cannot make you roll to see if it works. It just works. That reliability is what makes the build functional in real play. You know that if you go down, you are getting back up. You can plan around that. You can take risks that other characters cannot take because you know the floor is higher for you. The floor is the minimum level of functionality you maintain when things go wrong. For most characters, the floor is 0 hit points and unconsciousness. For this build, the floor is 0 hit points and still acting. That is a massive difference. It means that even in the worst case scenario, you are still contributing. You are still a threat. You are still forcing the enemy to deal with you. Most builds cannot say that. This also changes how you play. You do not have to play scared. You do not have to hold back waiting for the perfect turn. You can charge into the hardest fight, take the biggest hits, and trust that you will still be standing at the end. That freedom changes the game. It lets you take aggressive positions. It lets you draw fire away from squishier party members. It lets you make plays that would be suicidal for other characters. You are not being reckless. You are being appropriately aggressive for a character who cannot be removed from the fight by normal means. The counterplay from the Dungeon Master is limited. They can try to end your rage by not attacking you and forcing you to go a full round without hitting or being hit. But if you are at 0 hit points, you are in melee with something. You are attacking it. It is probably attacking you back. Your rage is not ending. They can try to force you out of rage with a calm emotions spell, but that requires you to fail a saving throw, and even then it only suppresses the rage. It does not end it. You can rage again on your next turn. They can try to separate you from the fight with forced movement or teleportation, but that just means you have to spend a turn getting back into position. It does not kill you. The only real counter is massive overkill, and that requires the Dungeon Master to build encounters specifically to kill you. If they are doing that, they are metagaming. They are designing encounters around your character instead of around the story or the balance of the party. That is fine. Let them. If the dungeon master is spending that much effort trying to kill one character, the rest of the party is free to win every fight effortlessly. You have become the problem that the dungeon master has to solve, and while they are solving you, everyone else is solving the encounter. This is why the build works. It is not perfect, it is not unbeatable. But it changes the equation in a way that forces the dungeon master to commit disproportionate resources to removing you from the fight, and even when they do, you are still acting, you are still threatening. You are still making them pay for every action they invest in you. That is what invincibility looks like in actual play. Not that you cannot be hurt, not that you cannot lose, but that the cost of beating you is so high that the enemy cannot afford it while also dealing with the rest of the party. The build also scales cleanly. At level 3, you get relentless endurance from your half-orc ancestry. At level 14, you get rage beyond death from Zealot. That is a long gap, but relentless endurance alone is enough to keep you functional through the early and mid-tiers. By the time you hit level 14, fights are dangerous enough that rage beyond death becomes necessary. The scaling matches the threat curve. You get the tools you need when you need them. After level 14, the build is complete. You do not need more levels to make it work. You can multi-class if you want. You can take feats. You can build in whatever direction supports your playstyle. The core is done. You are invincible in the way that matters. Everything else is flavor. The long-term impact on the campaign is that you become the anchor. Other characters can take risks because they know you will not go down. The party can push into harder encounters because they know you will survive the focus fire. The dungeon master has to design around the fact that standard damage-focused encounters do not threaten you the way they threaten other characters. That changes the types of challenges you face. You will see more saving throw effects. You will see more environmental hazards. You will see more encounters designed to split the party or force movement. That is fine. Those encounters are more interesting anyway. What you will not see is the standard grind of attrition, where the party slowly loses hit points and resources until someone drops and the fight collapses. You break that pattern. You take the hits. You stay up. The party keeps moving forward. That consistency is what makes the build valuable beyond just surviving. You are not surviving for the sake of surviving. You are surviving so that the party can execute their plan without worrying about the front line collapsing. The final thing to understand is that this build does not make you the main character. You are not stealing the spotlight. You are not the one ending fights with big dramatic moments. You are the one making sure the fight lasts long enough for those moments to happen. You are the foundation. You are the reason the wizard gets to turn 5 where they can drop their biggest spell. You are the reason the rogue gets their sneak attack every round instead of spending turns stabilizing you. You enable the party. That is the role. That is what invincibility is for. If you want a build that lets you ignore the most common failure state in Dungeons and Dragons, this is it. If you want a character who keeps fighting no matter how much damage they take, this is it. If you want to stop worrying about going down and start worrying about how to end the fight before your rage runs out, this is it. You will drop to 0. You will take massive hits. You will spend entire fights at negative hit points. And you will win anyway, because the enemy cannot make you stop.